Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We have our amazing partners with us from Learning Upgrade. We have Vinod and Drew. They will be presenting the webinar today, and I will turn it over to them. Thank you again.
All right, thank you, Bethel. Yes, so I'm Drew with Learning Upgrade, joined by my colleagues Vinod and Haneen. Company's based in San Diego. I'm the only one that's not, unfortunately. I'm in Los Angeles area, but one of these days I might make my way south. I see a few of you have already introduced yourselves in the chat, so feel free to introduce yourselves there. I see some familiar names, and I also see that a few of you are chiming in from areas that might be impacted by the hurricane. So I just really appreciate all of you attending today, especially given everything that's going on, back to school. And we really have an exciting webinar on our new courses, which are going to be focusing in on our career readiness courses. So today we're covering our career readiness app to teach finance, digital, and work skills. And when we talk about that college and career readiness, I think, some of you I see in the chat have already, they have learning upgrade licenses. So you're familiar with our college readiness, where we have our ESL English track, where we take learners from, as low as pre-literacy, so first exposure to English, all the way up to fully proficient. A lot of you have used our math courses, which take students from basic numeracy all the way up to fully proficient and algebra, as well as our test prep, so our HSE, GED, and HiSET, and our test preparation for things like TOEFL and IELTS, so the language proficiency. So that's been in use for quite some time in adult education. And what we were hearing time and time again is that we wanted something for the career readiness side, for the job skills. Once learners have made it all the way up through our other courses, they love the format, they find it works for them, it's successful, they enjoy the engaging content, and they were wanting to upskill in things like digital literacy, financial literacy, and then some of the softer skills, those work-life skills. And then the new course that we just released that we won't be covering today, but again, it was by request, is citizenship. So for those of you that do have a need for citizenship, students preparing for the naturalization interview, especially those of you that have been taking a look at the new process that'll be in place next year, where they're going to be moving away from asking questions from the form that the individuals are submitting, as well as having multiple choice for the civics component. We have a fantastic new course that'll be addressing the current test, but also preparing students for the new naturalization interview with officers that'll be in place for next year. So with that, thank you for everyone that's chimed in the chat. Final bit of housekeeping. For those of you that have questions, please use the Q&A for that. It just makes it a lot easier for us to manage. As those questions do come in, Vinod and Haneen will be able to answer those in real time. And then we'll also be able to get a log of the questions that have been asked versus the ones that have been answered. Anytime I mention things like a document, a link, anything of that nature, that will go in the chat. So do keep an eye on the chat. If you have any comments or questions, you can always feel free to use the chat as well if you don't have access to the Q&A for whatever reason. If you're on mobile, tablet, things like that, that's okay. And then the final thing is you'll see the QR code at the bottom. So part of our new digital literacy course is we like to work on some digital literacy with our instructors as well. And so we'll be talking about using learning circles, especially using WhatsApp. So for those of you that aren't using WhatsApp currently in the classroom, 90+% of our adult learners, especially new arrivals, low income, use WhatsApp as their primary communication app on their phones. The reason for that is it's free and it doesn't take a big hit on data. Most cases it's data free. So I'll be showing you how to use WhatsApp for learning circles. And as recordings, slides, everything I'm covering today, I'll be sharing there as well. And so that'll be fun and an additional piece of instruction on top of our new courses. So here's a little bit of an outline. I'll give a brief introduction on Learning Upgrade. Then we'll be getting into the career readiness side of things and talking about our new courses. Then we'll talk about preparing with the app. So what does that look like for the student experience? We'll wrap up with deployment models. Part of that will be the learning circles. Part of that will also be traditional, onboarding. And so what does that look like for a community college, library, literacy center, and traditional adult school? And then at the end, we'll talk about getting started. So for those of you that have Learning Upgrade, all of these new courses will be available to you. For those that aren't currently using Learning Upgrade, we offer free pilots. So you'll get an unlimited free pilot, as many students as you need for the rest of this calendar year. And we also include free training with that. So anybody that would like to get started with Learning Upgrade, Vinod and Haneen will be sharing a link in the chat shortly. So you can fill that out now, but then we'll also be sharing it at the end. And all you need to do is fill out that form with some basic program information, and we'll be able to get your set site up with a pilot. Again, my name's Drew, joined by Haneen and Vinod. Feel free to reach out to any of us. Our emails are just our first names at learningupgrade.com. And then we also have our QR codes. These link to LinkedIn. So if you prefer to communicate with us there, that's okay. And then if you join that WhatsApp group that we'll be using for learning circles, you can also reach out to us there. So Learning Upgrade at its core, for our introduction here, we're an organization that's really geared up for life-changing education. I talked about our English and our math, our test prep. Today, we're going to be focusing on our career readiness and job skills. So the way we do that is really in these three parts. So the first is our breakthrough app, and that's where we're going to be spending most of our time today. This is what the students experience, and this is where they're going to be upskilling and improving their lives. The way we teach is through songs, video, and games. So we use engagement. We drive what we call binge learning. That's where learners love what they're doing. It's bite-sized, so they can complete lessons in 5 to 15 minutes. It simulates what they do with other apps on their phone. So when they're on Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, YouTube, watching short clips on TikTok, stories on Instagram, shorts on YouTube, everything's really built out around bite-sized content now. So our goal is to have the learners doing the same with Learning Upgrade. We start every single lesson with narration. So a narrator comes on and introduces the topic and the content. We keep that short, 60 to 90 seconds. Then we follow up with the instruction in the form of a song, and that helps them remember it. Again, that's going to be 60 to 90 seconds. And then comes the gamification. So they get to practice what they learned. With feedback, we record over 10,000 pieces of audio for every single one of our courses. So they get constant feedback and remediation as they do go through this gamified component of the app. If they do get something wrong, it's like having a teacher or a tutor built in. They get instruction on how to answer it correctly. The app walks them through exactly how to do that. And then we can scale it back to something a little more workable until they can skill up and answer that same question again later. We also have a learning management system, and that's going to be for the instructors, admins, teachers, tutors, anybody that needs to track and monitor the students that they're working with. And this is going to provide a few tools. So number one, it's on the reporting side, it's on accountability, it's tracking and monitoring students as they begin their journey all the way up to full proficiency. And then we also provide tools to really help you, skill up. So what we find with a lot of our libraries and literacy centers, especially post-COVID, volunteers are hard to come by, instructors are hard to come by, and yet they have this massive need to serve more students. More students need access to their services, more access to their instruction. So we make sure that number one, Learning Upgrade is easy to use, and that way you can adopt this program without any fear of having to do massive amounts of training to get up to speed on how to use it. And then number two, if you would like to reach out to more learners in your community, you would like to bring more people in, I say 50 to 1 volunteer ratio, even for programs that don't have paid instructors, that don't have credentialed instructors, individuals that just want to help out are able to manage a group of 50 students with our learning management system. Then the final component is free to start and very affordable to grow. So as I already mentioned, everybody in attendance today will get a free Learning Upgrade license through the end of the calendar year. And from there, we have very affordable seat-based licensing where you can transfer license seats based on students in the program. So if one leaves, you can take them off and reallocate that to someone else. And then also we have very affordable site-wide licensing. We find that that's where most of our programs are going with. Once they get up above 100 or 150 students using it, the site-wide makes a lot more sense. And then they can just make it unlimited to every single student that they would like to serve. So very briefly about us, now we've served over 3 million, we're close to 3.5 million students served now. Most of you from COABE will know us from the X Prize. And so we won the Adult Literacy X Prize sponsored by Dollar General, who you saw as a sponsor of a lot of what COABE does as well. And they gave a $7 million prize to any app that could get measurable gains in literacy for adult ed. And after the largest field test ever in adult ed, 12,000 students, we were the grand prize winners there. And we've taken a lot of what we've learned from the X Prize and continue to improve the app and add new courses to make sure that everything we did in English translates to the same amount of growth and life skill improvement for adults across our other courses. It meets the federal standards. So for our English, our math, these aren't just language acquisition or basic numeracy. We meet all the federal standards for education. We also are available on every web-enabled device. So Android, iOS, or through a browser makes it quick and easy for students to get started. And we don't nickel and dime programs. So when you pay for a seat, you get access to everything: English, math, test prep, and job skills. It's always one price. We keep it simple, and we make sure that it's affordable for every single one of you. So here's a look at some of our latest deployments. Obviously, in the United States, we work closely with a lot of K-12, adult ed, community colleges, and then some non-traditional programs. We work with refugee resettlement agencies, and then we're growing with similar programs throughout the world. And again, one of the biggest things that we kept hearing is after the students get through our English, they're at that NRS 5, they go through all of our math, they'd really like to take the next step into job skills. So today that'll be the focus, is these courses. So to get started, let's just start out with our job skills and career readiness. So our focus here is, educational institutions do a fantastic job of preparing students with knowledge for jobs in a workplace that's changing rapidly. And we all see how quickly it's changing, the different kind of jobs, what we expect out of employees, how a job that you have this year might not even look the same in a few years. And so career readiness is aiming to develop key skills for professional success that'll ease the transition as they move from your program in traditional education institutions into the role of an employee. So career readiness can really help ensure success in the workplace so that they can take hard skills as well as the soft skills in this career readiness prep. And it teaches students how to manage their careers long-term and also equip them to apply the skills they've learned. And so we'll be going over how our courses address that. Before I do that, I asked a lot of teachers, I was asking colleagues, similar to a lot of our courses, when you ask somebody, do you know what financial literacy is? Everybody says yes. And then you ask them, okay, define financial literacy. And it can be a little bit more difficult, even for those that teach financial literacy. And so with career readiness, it's similar. It's such a large umbrella of topics that it can be nice to look in and say, okay, well, what exactly is it are we focusing in on? So first and foremost, it's that career and self-development. We're looking at soft skills, communication, critical thinking, equity and inclusion, leadership. Professionalism is huge. We hear that a lot from individuals that are on the hiring side, is that professionalism is something that's lacking in a lot of the applicants. So we want to make sure we address, being on time, how you present yourself in an interview, how you dress, how you interact with colleagues, teamwork. Technology is so big, it's one word here, but we have an entire digital literacy course, 60 lessons aligned to North Star, ISTE, and then the new international DQ standards, just because of how critical technology is in almost every job. And then once they move from traditional education, they get their first job, they're succeeding in the workplace. Now we want to make sure they have the financial literacy to continue the long-term success. So a lot of these individuals are getting a paycheck for the first time. They have access to benefits for the first time. They have access to retirement plans for the first time. And unfortunately, in the United States, a lot of them fall victim and prey to predatory practices. So as soon as they start getting money, industries swarm in, they try to inundate them with high interest credit cards, high interest car loans. They go after them with Ponzi schemes and poor investments and try to extract that money that they've earned. So we want to make sure they have the skills to avoid that. And then we get into things like time management, stress management to make sure you can be there for the job long term and also be there at home, be there with the individuals and your family and those close to you, and then emotional intelligence. So here you can see all of our courses. Again, we're not going to be covering our English or math today. We'd be more than happy to get you up to speed on those if you're interested. If you haven't done a deep dive on the webinars there, we can do personal training. We've also done other webinars on those in the past. Today, we're really focusing on the first three of skills. So digital literacy, work life, and financial literacy. But again, every single one of the courses you see here will be available to all of your students at any time, whenever they're ready to go. English and math, those are based on placement or direct placement by a teacher. So the first time the student logs in, they'll take an assessment, and then we'll get them enrolled in the appropriate English and or math course. You also have the opportunity, okay, they just, took CASAS, they're at CASAS 210. You can directly enroll them in the appropriate course. In that case, it would be in English 2. Once they're up to an NRS 4.5, that's the English proficiency needed for our skills courses. That's when we're going to have them jump into our digital literacy, work life, and financial literacy. And that's where we'll get started today. So to start out, we're going to go with work life, just because when we were showing those topic areas, this is going to include the majority of those. So for those that aren't, fully up to speed on how you would even define work life, these are going to be the soft skills needed for success on the job, at home, and at school. And those are the topics we just touched on. So communication, teamwork, self-awareness, social skills. What a lot of companies are finding is that a lot of the people that they hire come technically proficient. And so they have the hard skills required for the job, which is fantastic, but they may lack the ability to work productively, work within a group, interact with coworkers, interact with management. And so the work-life skills course is for the people that really need these soft skills. And again, this is optimizing long-term. It's one thing to prepare someone for a job. It's another thing to help them keep that job, be successful in that job, find opportunities for promotion, and to continue growing within the organization. So, it's important in the job market, obviously. We touched on the reasons why. Another one that we didn't touch on, but we have courses on, or lessons on in the course, is creating a resume, interviewing, and accepting a job offer. Again, interacting with management and coworkers. How do you resolve conflict? Maybe you are responsible for doing something on a job. Maybe your coworker was, and you're taking the blame for it. What's the appropriate course of action, and how do I interact with coworkers and management to ensure that I present this conflict in a way that's not going to be detrimental to my employment? And then in the classroom, I'm sure a lot of instructors you're talking to students, but you want to start setting an example now. You want to have those requirements now. If somebody is showing up to class on time, that's going to be something that translates into the workforce. If they're planning out their education, and this is something we take for granted, but something a lot of our students aren't doing, is I might be starting here today, but where do I want to be in 2 years or 5 years, 10 years? When we have career counseling, we have individuals on college campuses or maybe career centers that can help students plan out their education. That's fantastic. But a lot of employers don't provide that. And so that needs to be done by the individual. So we need to really make sure we cover what that looks like, make sure that they're setting goals, and make sure that they know how to do that. Effective writing. And then another big one is navigating complex systems. Higher education is a complex system. My neighbor right now just had his son start college, and all he talked to me about is how much of a nightmare the financial aid FAFSA system is. And so understanding complex systems, knowing how to navigate them is critical. So again, these are just some of the topics that we cover in our lessons. It's 30 full, so you'll get 30 brand new lessons to improve their work-life skills. It's all smartphone friendly, so students can take this wherever they go. They can work on it anywhere. They can use their login to access the courses at your site if you have a computer lab, Chromebooks, laptop cart, and then they can pick up right where they left off using their own devices at home. So, what makes Learning Upgrade work life maybe a little bit different than others? First and foremost is going to be high interest. We have our engaging lessons that use the songs, video, and games. Another big one is the ample practice. So we find a lot of work life tends to be just read and forget type stuff, where it's read a paragraph in this workbook, and then we don't provide any examples to take what we learned and really hone the topic area. So with Learning Upgrade, the gamification, we have ample practice. We throw a ton of questions at them. They can put together a schedule. They can work through a complex organization and a workplace hierarchy. We want to make sure that they can do that because the doing side of the gamification is really what helps them retain it. Automatic course sequencing is also important. So again, they'll have access to all of our courses. They can move through English, math, and job skills, and it's fully integrated into our system. So this is the sequence that they'll work through. Traditionally, students are going to work through our lessons one at a time. They need to get 75% or better to move on to the next one. So 75% is a bronze, 90 is a silver, and then 95 is a gold. So you'll see I have a gold on 8 and a bronze on 20. By default, they'll move through one at a time. What we find with a lot of our work life skills, though, is teachers just unlock it. Unlike English and math that actually do work in sequence, you need to know lessons 1 through 10 before you can do 20 through 30. Work life skills, they are, they can be taken at any rate. So we find that unlocking these works for a lot of our students. They start out with communication basics, work through with our work ethic, perseverance, adaptability, critical thinking. And so these are going to be a lot of those, in the class and on the job. Same with 7 through 11 as we go with self-awareness, attitudes, leadership, time management. One of our big ones that we didn't realize how important it was presentation and speaking. And it might be something we take for granted. For me personally, on Zoom a lot, face-to-face with teachers, presenting at conferences. And then, of course, every single instructor, this is your day in and day out. You're getting up in front of students, you're getting up in front of colleagues and presenting. But we found that a lot of our students were very apprehensive to speak in public. And so having the skills and the confidence in a lesson like this really helps them. And that translates to other soft skills. And so speaking up at work, it translates into the conflict resolution. It's a huge part of interviewing, to go and do an interview with confidence, doing your research, making sure you're read up on everything you need to be read up on. Preparation is one of the biggest parts of public speaking that isn't talked about. We often talk about taking deep breaths and being mindful and being confident. But in order to do that, you really have to know what you're talking about and you have to be prepared. So we dive in on that. And again, that ties into a lot of our other lessons. Then into the planning phase. So career planning, resume writing. We touch on interviewing, so actual interview techniques, networking. So what does that look like? In the past, that was a lot of in-person events. There are some online ways to network now. Social awareness is very important in today's setting. How do we present ourselves? Decision-making, effective writing, eliminating bad habits, and then up into more of a, soft skills. So creativity and innovation. This is something a lot of interviewers are looking for. Someone that can take the initiative on a new problem, a problem they haven't seen before, and find a way to figure it out and get the challenge completed. Integrity and honesty, how that stays with you, how it impacts how you're perceived, and opportunities to advance in a workplace. And then organization detail and initiative and motivation. And then our final one is final challenge. So that's going to be a cumulative test of everything the students have learned from 1 to 29. And once they finish that, they'll earn a certificate that'll be bronze, silver, or gold to show that they've learned everything in our work life skills course. For those of you that would like to have the students go through the app as well as print materials, our partners at New Readers Press have a work life skills workbook. And so this is a physical workbook, a print workbook, and they can use those in tandem. So if you do like to have print materials in the classroom and then have the students working alongside that with the digital, no problem at all. Just reach out to us and I can absolutely set you up with someone to talk about that. So with that, I'm just going to do a brief demo for work-life skills, and then we'll move on to our financial literacy and digital literacy.
At Mario's Pizza, the employees use teamwork to make sure the job is always done well. Alex and Marina work in the kitchen while David and Angelique work as servers. They all are skilled in their roles and always trust each other to do a good job. When the restaurant gets busy, they always communicate clearly and respectfully to each other without getting frustrated. Daniela is the manager who is always motivating the team and helping where she is needed in the restaurant. She reminds the team of the goals they are working towards and rewards them with parties or group events when goals are met. Good teamwork skills will help everyone to work together to the best of their abilities and get the job done.
A good team has teamwork. 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 A good team has teamwork. 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 A good team is dependable. They trust each other to get the job done. A good team has structure. Everyone knows the rules and roles. A good team communicates. People talk to each other with respect.
A good team has leaders that boost morale and motivate.
A good team has teamwork. Teamwork. Teamwork.
A good team has
Teamwork. Teamwork. Teamwork.
Read through this passage, then answer the questions about teamwork.
Okay, so you can see the general format starts out with the instruction. Then we do the instruction in the form of a song. And now the students will answer questions based on what they've learned. If they do get it incorrect, they'll get instant feedback and remediation, which I'm going to show you. I'll do a live demo of financial literacy in a bit, and you can see how that works. But from there, we're going to move into digital literacy. And so this is a critical part of every student's education these days, just because of how much every job requires it. Jobs that used to not require it, managing time cards, managing schedules, interacting with management, interacting with colleagues, all of that is done digitally now. And it's important that our learners know when to use tech speak, which types of communication I should use in a certain setting. So if I want to send Haneen a message right now about the webinar, WhatsApp okay, tech speak is okay. But if I want to reach out to maybe a director of a community college system, email is appropriate, phone is appropriate, and I'm going to communicate in a much different way. Not all of our students know that, so this is a big part of digital literacy going forward. And in a whole, it's the ability to use information and communication technologies to find, evaluate, create, and communicate information that requires a combination of cognitive and technical skills. So again, similar to work-life skills, it's critical in the job market because it's a new set of skills alongside our traditional skills. And the world of digital literacy is going to present new challenges. And more importantly, it's a moving bullseye because they're ever changing. Every single year, there's something new and something different. The job skills are also becoming requirements. It used to be interviewers would say that they're nice to have, they're optional. In a lot of cases now, they're required. And so individuals need to prepare for this rapidly changing technology and also give themselves that step up, an opportunity to get a job that they otherwise might not get if they didn't have these skills. In the classroom, I think over the last 3 or 4 years, everybody has seen just how much technology has been adopted, how important it was to have digital literacy skills during the times of COVID, where instruction had to move online. Luckily, we are no longer in that time period, and a lot more is in person. But little things going online to schedule your classes, communicating with teachers, submitting online assignments, doing research, all of this now is online. So it's critical that learners know how to access all of the platforms that take them where they need to go. So this is a 60 lesson course. And as I talked about earlier, it maps up to the ISTE, North Star, and DQ standards. High interest, again, we use songs, video, and games to teach. Because it is mobile, they're going to learn a lot of skills that they wouldn't get in a computer-focused standard like North Star. And that's critical because a lot of the drag and drop, long presses, everything's being built out around more of a modern unified interface for testing. When we're looking at the new civics test, even for citizenship, it's going to be a very modern platform of multiple choice interaction that we have in our app. And it also makes the onboarding a little bit easier. So before, for again, a North Star focused standard, we're starting up a computer, we're launching a browser, we're double clicking, we're finding our address bar, we're typing in a URL. There was a lot of instruction needed for that, and we still cover those standards. But for mobile, it's a very different set of skills. And the nice thing is because almost all of our adults have smartphones or have access to smartphones, they're coming into the course with a much higher level of knowledge than they did before. So that works in their favor. It also works in our favor. Automatic course sequencing, again, so this is just going to be built into their standard learning upgrade account. And then as the instructor, you'll get a chance to see extensive reporting at the learner, class, and school level. We do have all of our lessons and our standards online. So if you go to learningupgrade.com and click on courses, any of you that would like to get PDFs with tables of these standards are there. We can also share those in the chat. And just like we showed for work-life skills, if you do like companion print materials for your digital, we have a digital literacy workbook and teacher's guide. And so today I have a little less time, so I'm not going to do cloud versus local. I'm just going to jump right into documents, which will prepare students for programs like Microsoft Word and Google Docs.
Word processing programs, such as Google Docs or Microsoft Word, allow users to create a digital file called a document or doc file. Documents contain text and images. Some examples are essays, flyers, or reports. Let's process some word processing basics.
To create a new document, first choose File New. Type in the file name. The next thing to do, let's look at the ribbon from left to right. Undo your changes, redo them to right. Change the font to make your text look good. Font size changes, letter size as it should.
Select the answer. Perfect. Answer this question. Not quite. In the line spacing drop-down, select double.
Okay, and just before we move on, I just wanted to take a look at our full lesson list here. So this one does scale up a little bit, but similar to work life, it can be done out of sequence. So we start out with the basics. So internet basics, computer basics, phone basics, network basics. And then we get into more topical stuff. So we get into app stores, search, browse, trust validity, a lot of conceptual things that even a lot of adults I work with have a tough time with. So cloud versus local. Let's say I just recorded this entire recording and it's a large file. In the email, do I actually attach a large 1 gigabyte video file, or do I upload it somewhere like Zoom or on our website and share a link? What's going to be best? If it's saved on my computer, that's local. So Vinod and Haneen have no access to it. Once it's in the cloud, they do have access to it. Share versus send, now I'm going to be sharing it. That's where I have to think about how I want to do that. Do I want to send an entire file, or do I want to share a link? So again, conceptual things that are fantastic lessons for learners that don't do this on a daily basis. Then little things, data storage and organization, file types, filtering. That's going to be how to best organize data and files. Then we go numbers creation. So that's going to be spreadsheets. We just showed documents, graphic creation, and photo creation. So, when we show financial literacy, you're going to see that there's a huge small business component. A lot of our learners want to get into small business, into business for themselves. And so we touch on a lot of topics that are relevant. So when they get into the sales and marketing of that, they need to know about graphic creation, photo creation, design process, the introduction of coding versus programming, creating a website. What does that look like? What's the difference between my front end versus back end? What kind of a website am I looking to have? Moving into, okay, now I'm going to be using photos on my website. Did I take these? Copyright and fair use. Did I download them from Flickr or from Unsplash that are fair use websites? Or did I just grab them from a random Google search where they might belong to a content creator? Moving into things now, this is going to be for the school and the work side. So email, text message, direct message. When we created email, we took it for granted just because we use it every day. And a lot of the instructors told us this is one of their most recommended lessons for their students. And it makes a lot of sense. For us, our first exposure to digital literacy was probably through a desktop computer. And a lot of our first online communication was via email. Whereas the next generation, we're finding that almost all of their first access to the internet is on a mobile device. And because of that, they don't have the same communication via email. Almost all of it is text message based. So it's Messenger from Facebook. It's going to be direct messaging in different apps. It's WhatsApp, it's iMessage. And so it's important we cover email. It's critical in the workplace, and it's critical in a lot of school settings as well. Moving into conduct online, so social media posting, hashtag versus a handle, chat rooms and video conferencing. What's a digital identity? When you are online, what is net etiquette? So how do you conduct yourself? If you're looking to get a job in 2 or 3 years, there are certain things you might not want to post that pop into your head. There's a certain way you want to conduct yourself because there's a permanent digital footprint of everything you've ever done. Collaboration, online relationships, protecting your devices, so the security side of thing, content protection as well. Again, some of our softer skills in digital literacy, so social awareness, engagement, and advocacy, all the way up through things like health protection, dealing with strangers. So that's going to be phishing, individuals reaching out, trying to take your information. That ties into some of our financial literacy, avoiding online scams. And then we get into our final stretch here. So we have our digital economy, being a global citizen, newer topics on artificial intelligence and virtual reality, utilizing voice assistants, managing calendars. So again, this is critical at school and the workplace. If I have a unified calendar, I know that I was presenting for COABE today, and I'm not going to have anything else pop up on that calendar. And for a lot of our adult learners, we know they have families they're managing, they have jobs, sometimes multiple jobs, and they're going to school. So that's a critical one, putting together a unified calendar to make sure that they can be present for all of their commitments. Travel using online, and then finally, job search, which is a huge part of not just the work-life skills, but job readiness and career readiness is knowing how to utilize job search online to really cast a wide net and provide themselves an opportunity to get a job. And then again, just like work-life and all of our other courses, the final lesson is the final challenge, and that'll be a cumulative test of everything they've learned on 1 through 59. For those that haven't used Learning Upgrade in the past, 1 through 59 are untimed. So they get the songs, they get the instructions, they get the practice questions, and that's completely self-paced. They can take as much time as they need. Final challenge is going to be timed. And so that's just to prepare them for assessments and tests that they're going to take in a classroom setting. It also prepares them for the workplace. When they sit down for an interview, they're not going to have unlimited time to answer a question. They're not going to have unlimited time to get the job done. Almost everything you're doing in a professional setting has some form of a deadline or a time constraint. So we want to make sure that they're comfortable working under time constraints. It's not too onerous. We want to make sure they do have time to answer questions, but it is also important that we stimulate what it feels like to have a little bit of a deadline to answer a question. So now the final course that we're going to cover here is our brand new financial literacy. So again, I mentioned at the beginning, I asked a lot of people to define financial literacy for me. All of them told me they knew exactly what it was, but then when pushed a little bit to provide a definition, it became a little more difficult. So again, just throwing out a definition here so we can kind of crystallize our thoughts around the design of our course. And it's the ability and knowledge to understand and demonstrate financial skills. And the skills we're going to touch on are going to be starting out with earning, saving, investment, borrowing, budgeting, and then asset protection. And these principles provide a roadmap for sound money management in the short term and the long term. So really setting up somebody for a very healthy long-term financial future. And these skills mean having, not just that knowledge base, but also the confidence to use the skills. And so when they do go to fill out paperwork for a loan, when they're getting things in the mail because they just got a new job to sign up for brand new credit cards with super high interest rates, and they understand that now. They understand compounding interest. They understand predatory financial institutions. So again, it's not just the knowledge, but it's the confidence to act on that knowledge so that when they locate and evaluate these sources, they know exactly what to do. So, why is it important? Talked about earlier, a lot of our low-income adults, a lot of new arrivals, they're getting access to jobs, to retirement, to healthcare, to different services that they haven't had before. And there's an entire predatory industry set up to take that away. So we want to make sure that they have the skills and knowledge to address that. Financial literacy is also going to help individuals achieve long-term goals. So if they want to start their own business, they want to save up to pay for their college. We all know how expensive it can be. Pay down loans, to have debt freedom. If they have children or others in the family that they'd like to help out with college. And then, of course, for everybody wanting to save up for retirement. Financial products are also becoming much more technical, much more widespread. And so when you poll people 20, 30 years ago, how often do you use cash? Most of them would tell you every day. Everybody would say at least every week. And that's just no longer the case. Most people are using credit cards for every purchase. They're making a lot of purchases online. And when they are in person, they're using mobile payments. So that's not something that's slowing down. It's just going to become more widespread. And so as financial products become, more widespread, more digital, as we talked about in digital literacy, they're going to get exposed to this at a much younger age. And this is backed up by data. So Federal Reserve reported that only 20% of purchases were made with cash in 2021. Expect that number to continue going down. People with financial literacy are also less likely to take on unmanageable debt burdens. Once you understand interest, you understand compounding interest, you understand variable rates, you understand predatory practices, you're just a lot less likely to take these things on. This is also going to result in lower levels of bankruptcy, lower credit scores, foreclosures, tax delinquency. And the Federal Reserve also found that a quarter of Americans have no retirement savings, 50% lack the funds to cover 3 months of wages, and 37% don't have $2,000 for an emergency. On the other side of that, almost half are using predatory things like payday loans, pawn shops, and other expensive financial services. A lot of the times they can't help it. They don't have the resources in the short term to cover their expenses. But again, our goal with financial literacy is just to provide them with the knowledge, skills, and confidence to start heading down the right track for a successful financial future. So what makes our course special is we do a lot more than just the basics. We cover planning. We go into budgets, financial planning, college planning, earning, so job types, receiving wages, benefit packages, pay stubs, spending, so credit cards and mobile payments, rent, insurance, savings with bank accounts, investments, and retirement, borrowing. And then the big one, like I talked about, is small business. This is huge for individuals that are online, their technical skills, their trades. All of that requires online knowledge. So not just digital literacy, but financial literacy. What does a Yelp profile look like? What does a Facebook page look like? What does a website look like? Can people book my services online? If they're making payments to me online, do I pay taxes on that? How do I receive that? Do I need a bank account for that? These are critical parts of financial and digital literacy that small business really needs knowledge in. And so we want to make sure that they have a solid framework there. So similar to digital literacy, our course starts out with the basics. We always want to start there and then dive into the more complicated lessons, mobile payments, mobile finance, difference between renting a home and buying a home, buying a vehicle, getting into the work, college side of things, then get into the longer term investment and retirement, then into our small business, business registration, record keeping, making sure that if the IRS wants to audit us next year, we have clean financial records so that we can take care of that. Financial statements, business loans. So again, most businesses can't just be started up in a day. If it does require services, if it does require hardware, maybe I need a work truck, maybe I need an entire array of brand new tools. What does a business loan look like, and how is that different from a personal loan? My business goes under, can they come after me? Is it something where the business is registered appropriately so that's not the case? Losing a home. Sales and marketing. So how do I promote my business and make people aware of the services that I am now offering as a small business? And then the longer term is the income comes in, the financial planning, paying taxes on that. Then a new one, so fintech, what does that look? So financial technology. And then like our other courses, we end with a final challenge, making sure that there's a cumulative test on everything we learn there, and then going on from that point. So 30 brand new lessons. Key to financial literacy is a foundation in math. As you can see, we're calculating interest rates, making payments. The nice thing is, unlike a lot of other financial literacy courses, we can get your students ready for this. It doesn't matter where they're starting their journey. We'll get them all the way up to algebra if need be. Then there's the ELA side of things. So there's a certain level of English proficiency needed to jump in to financial literacy in the United States. A lot of these contracts are complex intentionally. So we want to make sure they have those skills. Again, they get that in the app. Then they can improve their financial literacy skills and be fully prepared for a financial healthy future. So with that, I'm going to switch over to the browser and we're going to do a live view of what your students will experience. So once they have their account, they can log in. They'll all have a username and password. We'll provide training on this. We do spreadsheet enrollment. Students can self-enroll, and then we can do push notifications via WhatsApp or text message, or you can hand them a PDF or a printed version of their credentials. Again, any of you that do have a pilot, we'll provide follow-up training, and we have online documentation. The focus of today is just on the courses, but if you do have any questions on student onboarding and getting started with the pilot, we'll cover that briefly in 2 or 3 minutes at the end, but also in follow-up training.
Select your course to get started.
So again, clicking on financial literacy, here we have an unlocked version of everything. And we're going to take a look at
financial planning is something you need to do all through your life, so you have the money you need to reach your goals. You can do this yourself or hire a professional financial planner to help you. Short-term planning helps you save money for health emergencies, travel, or losing a job. You need an emergency fund in a savings account that you can withdraw quickly. For example, if you have to travel quickly to visit a relative who is sick, your savings will enable you to do this. Try to reach 6 months' worth of expenses in a savings account. Long-term planning helps you invest money for your...
So the nice thing is in the live course, I can show you what it looks like for a student. They can always pause instruction at any time. They can rewind by 10 seconds or just use the scrub bar to go back. We also have an online workbook. They can print this out as well if they'd like to fill it out. But if they are working online in the browser, they can just type in the name of the course, the lesson, the date, and then they can type in any notes. So there's a lot of instruction in some of these lessons. The nice thing is they do have a print workbook if they want to print this out and do lesson by lesson. Or they can go ahead and fill it out online and save it, and they'll be able to keep track of everything there. So with that, I'm going to skip ahead to the song and then the game.
Let's plan your finances. 50, 30, 20. Got to spend your
20% of what you earn and spend it on what you need. Like paying for your car and your home and your bills and your food and your groceries. Then 30% of what you earn goes into what you want. Like entertainment, buying clothes, or fancy restaurants. The last 20% is set aside for your financial goals. Savings for an emergency fund, pay debts and investments, now you're done.
50, 30, 20, got to spend your money wisely. 50, 30, 20, got to spend your money wisely. Yeah.
Read the question about financial planning and choose the best answer.
All right, and then from there, the students would begin to answer questions based on what they learned. So we'll just briefly go back to the slides to close out here. And key will be just focusing in on the learning management system and also the pilot for those of you that have taken the time to fill that out. So the app we already talked about. To just briefly cover what's possible, I know we talked about students that are pre-literate. Anybody, we work with refugees, new arrivals that start out with zero instruction. We also work across 8 countries with Afghan refugees, pre-literate, no previous English instruction. We take them from NRS ESL 1 all the way up to 6 in the span of 6 months when we can get 4 to 5 hours a week. All of the courses will be available to the students. And again, it's that bite-sized instruction, the songs, video, and games that'll lead to the accelerated growth. Everything is self-paced, so as an instructor, once the accounts are created, you don't have to do anything. The engagement will keep the learners moving forward. Brief goal setting, you can see what happens when students get 1 hour a week. Our target is 4 hours a week. If you're wanting to see what the full path looks like, this is what it would look like. So pre-literate in English, very little instruction in math. 350 hours though, and they can go through all of our English, math, and job skills. 350 hours might sound like a lot, but if you break it down to an hour a day, I think we all know we probably spend at least an hour a day on our phones, definitely that much on our computers, most of our adult learners as well. So getting them to spend 30, 45, 60 minutes on Learning Upgrade, it's not really a big ask, and you'll find with the binge learning, it actually happens quite quickly. With the learning management system, again, after you sign up for the pilot, we'll provide all of the instruction there, as well as the documentation, styled similarly to other systems you've used. So the teachers will create classes, the students go in there. Onboarding is simple and easy. We use WhatsApp. All the reports are intuitive, and we can help you get those dialed in to meet the data needs of your site or your program. And then the last thing is with learning circles, students that might be learning virtually or just looking for community. WhatsApp is a great way to do that. In person is fantastic, but we also provide training to utilize WhatsApp communities to create those communities yourselves. And then students can interact on WhatsApp. You can interact with them on WhatsApp. Again, not something that's required, especially for those of you that have students coming into a classroom setting and the learning circle is in person. But for those that would like to talk to us about getting training on WhatsApp learning circles, we can provide training there as well. And as I mentioned at the beginning, free to start, affordable to grow. For all of you, your students' 4X learning journey can begin today. All you need to do is fill out the form and we'll be able to get you set up. So that's everything I wanted to cover, really a focus on our 3 new job skills and career readiness courses, work-life skills, digital literacy, and our brand new financial literacy. All of our other courses are included. So the brand new citizenship course, our HSE test prep for GED and HiSET, TOEFL and IELTS, as well as our English and math. So feel free to scan the QR code, click on the link in the chat, fill out the form. I'm really looking forward to hearing from everybody, getting you trained if you're needing it. Our documentation is fantastic though. Many people are able to get started right away on their own. If there's any other questions, feel free to use the Q&A and or the chat, or you can always reach out to us in the WhatsApp group or via email. Drew@learningupgrade.com is a way to get a hold of me, and I'd be more than happy to answer additional questions. With the last 1 or 2 minutes before I hand it back over to the COABE side, just going to go through the answered questions. So for Kathleen, yes, everyone will have access to the recordings of the webinar. Daniel's question, so any other languages? So we have our English and math closed captioned in Spanish and Arabic. We're working on closed captioning for our newest courses. So that's a work in progress. But for our English and our math, every single one of those has closed captioning for Spanish and Arabic. The printable worksheets. So we do have the workbooks for work-life skills and digital literacy. So those are, and then the notebook where the students can take their own personal notes, that's printable as well, or available online. So thank you everybody for attending, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. I think you're muted there, Bethel.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Vinod. I just launched a poll for those who are left. What a great presentation. If you could just take that poll real quick, and then everybody else have a great afternoon. Thank you again from Learning Upgrade for a great presentation. Everyone else have a great day.